I can sort of hear.
Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you are at. Welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John, and joining me this time is somebody who I've never gotten a chance to do an episode with yet, so I'm super pumped. It's Steve, the man, the myth, the legend himself. How are you doing?
Listen, you finally lifted the restraining order, and so this way we can actually do an episode together.
Yeah, I was not aware that restraining orders covered digital meetings, but I guess it did.
Yeah.
It's good that was lifted. Everything just flipped and I just got
Yeah,
thrown off.
exactly.
It's
Out of
good
this,
that was lifted so that we could do this episode. And also, in like less than 2 weeks, we are going to be together physically at Sundance.
that's true. Looking forward to it. There's a bunch of us that are going, and there's some really cool movies. And the best part is that none of us know what the big movies are going to be out of the fest because I have not seen anything yet. Normally, by this time, they like send me a link or two, and because I'm going to do some interviews. But this year, I haven't seen anything, and it's alarming because I'm going to be doing a bunch of interviews, and it takes time to watch some of these movies. But I really look forward to the fest and discovering films that are just not on your radar that all of a sudden become the things you were raving about all year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ton of fun. This is actually gonna be my first Sundance. I've never been to Sundance, so I'm pretty stoked to get there and sort of check out the vibes and see how it's gonna be. I'm also really excited because we're gonna be producing a ton of just fantastic content. You mentioned the interviews and things of that nature. There's gonna be a lot of great stuff coming out. I'm gonna be working my butt off, editing videos, shooting videos, having a great time. It's gonna be awesome. I'm super stoked for it. So be sure to look out for that. Collider.com. The YouTube channels, the socials, all that stuff. There's going to be stuff just plastered all over the place for it. So be sure to check that out. But today we have some news we're going to talk about. So let's get into that. We're going to be talking about the Naked Gun reboot, remake. I'm not entirely sure on the actual language there, which one it is. But, one of those. We're going to be talking about Kingpin on Daredevil Born Again. But first, the very first thing that we're going to talk about is the future of the Orville. So you got a chance to talk to Seth Macfarlane while talking to him about the upcoming TED show. And you got a chance to ask him about the Orville. You want to talk a little bit about what he had to say there?
Sure. I just want to start out that it meant I was very curious, so I started the interview off asking about the Orville. And I am a fan of the show. If you have not seen it, the first few episodes, season 1 is not as good as season 2 and 3. The series does get better as it goes. I thought like the beginning of the show, it was searching for its tone. There was some jokes that didn't work for me, whatever. But the show really does get good, and and if you're into Star Trek and you haven't seen it, it's really worth your time. But anyway, the last season, it aired a while ago now on Hulu, and then it aired on Disney Plus. And there's been a lot of talk about, is the show done? Because there's been no talk about another season, no talk about anything. So I asked Seth, and I said, is it dead? What can you say? And I forget the exact quote was, it is not dead, or maybe you can see it online. But basically he's saying it's not dead. And what that means could be anything from them doing a comic book to an animated series to a TV movie to a video game to you name it. The fact is, though, the show costs a lot of money to produce. And I think if they were going to make another show, another season, we would have heard that by now. And I think when he's talking about, this is me obviously inferring from what he's saying, but I think when he's talking about the show is not dead, I think it means that there's going to be Orville content coming, but not necessarily the show. I just don't know what what the Orville's future is. But as someone who really enjoys the characters in the show, I'm optimistic, that fans can get something.
Yeah. So the actual quote, just so that we can get the exact wording, is how do I answer this question? It is not officially over yet. No. Uh I mean, that could read in a few different ways. As you pointed out, it could be any number of different avenues that we could be seeing media. It could also be the kind of thing where the studio hasn't decided if they want it to be dead yet. The higher ups haven't fully killed it yet. It's just not ready to be, I mean, officially killed off. It could be any number of things. I personally am very hopeful for it. It took me a while to get into the Orville. Like, I was a few years late getting into watching it. Mostly because, as you pointed out, the first season was kind of rough to get into. I felt like it was, the first season is very much a parody of Star Trek, and everything after that kind of becomes like the best Star Trek season in a while. But it is a fantastic show, and I do hope that we see more from it. But that's not the only Seth MacFarlane related news that we have to talk about, because you actually also talked to him about another project, another little bit of work that he is putting in. You got a chance to talk to him about the Naked Gun reboot, and this is one of those things that we kind of heard a little bit of about a year ago. And then there was a whole lot of just silence, whole lot of nothing until it came up. And finally, you got to ask him about it. And he basically just said, it is being worked on as we speak. Akiva Schaffer, who's written the draft with his team, has done a hell of a job, and it is in development. So it's still very much alive. That is a far more positive quote than his Orville one. Steve, are you excited for a Naked Gun reboot? Is this something that you feel like we need?
Uh, I'm excited for it because Liam Neeson would be playing the character, and Frank, I think Drubin. I can't remember the character's name.
Drubbin, yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
But
Yeah.
I've interviewed Liam a few times, and I've always brought it up with him, and he seems genuinely excited to play the role. And also, let's be honest, Liam has done a lot of these action movies, the Taken-esque films, and he's getting older, and there's only so much action he can do. But standing around and delivering dialogue and being doing comedy is something he can definitely do, and I think he would be great in the role. And also, I think that, like, the thing is, listen, some people don't like Seth MacFarlane. I do. I think he's very funny, and I love how he pushes boundaries. And when you see the new Ted series, there's a lot of jokes in there that would not make it on another channel. Like, and I don't know how much I can say, but he pushes, and I like that. And I'd like to think that Naked Gun is ripe for a reboot and for a new movie. And I think that the combination of forces behind the scenes, I am looking forward to it, and I do hope it gets made. There's no, we don't have enough comedies.
Well, we especially don't have enough parody films. That is a subgenre of comedy that seemed to have died out like back during the 90s. It actually seemed like once Leslie Nielsen wasn't making them, nobody else was really doing parody films. We had like the movies for a while there, scary movies, epic movie, hero movie, whatever. But outside of that, we haven't seen parody in a while. And if this does follow, the original Naked Gun, and it is very much a parody of those, cop films or cop dramas or things of that nature, it's just going to be refreshing to see. I think just a sort of return to, at the very least, a type of comedy that as a child, that was like most of the comedy films that I watched were parodies, Hot Shots and Spy Hard and all these movies that I just loved growing up. So it's going to be pretty good to see that coming back.
Yeah,
Liam Neeson. Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm in full agreement. I welcome this, and I hope it gets made.
Yeah, and Liam Neeson, like, he doesn't do a ton of comedies, but when he does, I've always found him to be pretty hilarious. He popped up in a Thousand Ways to Die in the West, right?
Yeah,
Was that what
again,
that movie was called?
Yeah, that's
that's MacFarlane.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think he did an episode of Extras with Ricky Gervais. He's done a few things, and look, like I said, I just think he has the look for that role and playing it straight. Anyway, like I said, I hope this is one I hope gets made.
Yeah, and I mean, like him playing that role, it actually does hilariously sort of follow Leslie Nielsen's career path a little bit there, because he was, fun fact, he was a serious actor before he started doing like Airplane and Naked Gun and all those sort of films. So maybe that's where Liam Neeson's gonna go. He's gonna retire from action and just do comedy from here on out. I'd honestly be on board for that, because I think that is a breath of fresh air, as it were. All right, moving on to our final topic for the day. We have some news about Daredevil Born Again, at least some potential stuff. So Kingpin, we know, is going to be popping up in Echo. At least we're fairly certain he's going to be popping up in Echo.
I can confirm this. I've seen 3 episodes of Echo.
Okay, yeah, he's there. So, and we know that series seems to be situating itself almost as like a prequel to Daredevil Born Again. So
well, just to let you know, Echo is part of this thing called Marvel Spotlight, which is, so for people that don't realize, this takes place outside the continuity of the MCU.
Oh, it's actually like full outside the continuity. Like it's not going to directly connect in any way.
I'm pretty confident it's outside the continuity. I think that's what Spotlight is. It's sort of it's their new umbrella that makes it so you can watch something without knowing everything about the MCU.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the point now, after 15 years of MCU, that like Marvel and the studio, I think, is getting a little nervous that you need to have watched so much stuff to, be caught up on what the new thing is. So I would imagine this is an experiment at seeing, can we do stuff with Spotlight? And I actually think it's great, because not everything has to fit into the MCU umbrella, and maybe this way it will allow Marvel to tell stories using characters that are a little bit off the beaten path, and just do some wild things. Like, I want more Werewolf by Night, but that's part of MCU. That's not Spotlight. And I want more of that. And so hopefully this is the beginning.
Hopefully it is. But while speaking about Echo, D'Onofrio got to talk a little bit about Daredevil Born Again and sort of where they are at with that. And he basically threw his support behind all of the work that they are currently doing. He said, quote, "I think all the powers out there that control this whole creative world of the MCU also believe that we're in the right place now. I have to say, it's luck, really. I mean, my favorite series so far have been Moon Knight and Loki, and we've got those guys as directors. And so that's pretty lucky. We've also got Dario, who's an incredible writer who wrote The Punisher. We're in a very happy place right now." That is probably the most positive words about Born Again that we have heard since they scrapped what they had and started over, which is great, because I've been nervous about the show, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll just straight up say what I heard, which is, and I think you can read about it online, but I heard Daredevil Born Again was basically a mess. Like it was like 6 or 8 episodes in before you saw Daredevil in costume. It was more of a lawyer show. There was not much action. It was basically the polar opposite of the Netflix series. And the Netflix series, I think we can all agree, was really well done. Like, I really enjoyed the Punisher, the Daredevil. I also enjoyed Punisher, but really enjoyed Daredevil, and the casting was spot on. Like, no one can argue that Vincent is a great Kingpin, and Charlie's great as Matthew Murdock and Daredevil, but you can't go from that Netflix show and then all of a sudden have like a talking drama. Like, I don't want that. I want it to be Daredevil and Matthew Murdock,
I mean, a part of me would like to see a Marvel courtroom drama, but I feel like it would have to be its own thing and not like the next Daredevil series. I don't know. Maybe that's something that they kind of positioned that She-Hulk was going to be that, actually, now that I think about it. And then it wound up not being that. But anyways, I'm super excited to hear that it seems like things are going in a great place. And honestly, if Vincent D'Onofrio is happy with the way that the show is going and with the way that things are progressing, that's good enough for me, because I trust his opinion on how things are going. Because he loves the character, he loves the project, and it just seems like, if he's happy, I'm happy.
Also, Aaron and Justin, the directors, they're very talented. They're very, very good at their jobs. And I would like to think that having them sign on is a huge plus. And also, like, look, the fact is that Marvel is finally behind the scenes, sort of pushing pause on everything. Obviously, except for Deadpool 3, which is chugging along and doing great. But they are examining everything and trying to fix problems because look, the fact is, in my opinion, and I don't know how everyone else feels, that I love Marvel. I love Marvel movies. There's been a noticeable decrease in quality over the last few years where I am not as enthusiastic about what they're putting out. And I think that it's because it became product rather than art. And I know, like, listen, obviously, Marvel and Disney, they're trying to make money, they're trying to sell toys, but you can also create great movies while doing these things because a great movie encourages you to take pictures with the character at the theme park or buy the toys or buy the collectibles or whatever, surround yourself, with Marvel stuff. But I think it's very important that they have pushed pause on everything and are rewriting things like the new Captain America and Daredevil and a lot of other stuff behind the scenes and looking at the calendar and seeing where we're going to make changes and maybe making less and making what we're making better, and that's what I heard is going on, and I welcome this. I really want the movies and the shows to be awesome. I'm rooting for them, and I hope that this is the case.
Yeah, I very much feel like it's a lot of what you just mentioned. And it's also, I feel like there's at least an element of it that is just almost them getting complacent. Like they got comfortable. They, sort of reached a point where they felt like they could do no wrong. And now all of a sudden they're becoming very painfully aware that they can, in fact, do wrong and that they actually need to try. They can't just coast by on their past successes and hope that things are going to be all right.
Well,
Uh,
I was actually going to say I don't want to say I disagree with you, but I think the ultimate problem is that Marvel has a very strong leadership at the top, and there's a lot of key people that have been there for a long time that help make decisions and fix things. But when you are producing, say, 10 things at once, you cannot focus all your attention on one thing. One of the reasons why the movies were so good for so long is that they were releasing one movie a year, and then when they went to two movies a year, you could still maintain quality and do reshoots and fix things. But when you have like two or three movies a year and then three or four shows, it's impossible. Like one person or a few people can't do this. So you rely on the executives that are running the show to do the best job they can. But ultimately, like I'll say this at Collider, we brainstorm all the time together to come up with great ideas. And the more people you have discussing it, the better the idea sometimes is going to be, and that's what Marvel needs. And that's why making less, God willing, will have that executive team able to really focus on the projects they're making and how do we make these better. And maybe not letting something get made that isn't ready to be made, like not trying to find it in the writing process or in the reshoots, but like having strong scripts from the beginning, you know?
I think it's definitely at least safe to say that there's probably multiple factors that are playing into
Yeah.
the situation that Marvel is currently in. Whether or not it's any of the things that we each individually mentioned is, we aren't
Yeah.
there in the meetings. We don't know necessarily what the situation is. But the fact of the matter is, it seems like they are trying to course correct. Daredevil Born Again might have been like the most drastic course correction that they did, just straight up scrapping everything that they had and starting fresh. But
I
if
actually,
they're able to execute it, I think it's the right move.
I think they're not going to scrap everything they shot because they shot a bunch of episodes. I think what they're going to probably do is figure out what of the material we shot is salvageable for the new Daredevil, born like the new version of
Yeah.
the series. But like maybe there's a way of taking the courtroom stuff that they already shot and using that and not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you get what I mean. Also, they originally announced 18 episodes. Maybe they're going to decide. Remember, like I'm not sure if you remember, but they
Yeah.
must have decided they were going to shoot two seasons at once because there's no way to air 18. So it was probably two seasons, or you break it up into three. Maybe what they're going to do is decide, okay, let's not do 18, let's do 8, or 10, or whatever that number is, and bring it down, have a contained story, get it out, and as it's going out, let's work on season 2 or whatever. Because remember, also now Disney Plus and the Marvel shows now have showrunners, which in the past they never did. And so now they're thinking about, I know it's crazy. So now
It's
they're
so
thinking about,
bizarre to me. It's wild that they didn't before. Like, knowing what I know about how show production goes, it just, like, it blew my mind to hear that they didn't have showrunners.
yeah, it was also frustrating doing interviews where people are like, it was never really clear who was the final say, and now they're looking at the shows more about, okay, we're going to do seasons, not just one thing, and how do we, and that's what we've been talking about. Are they changing
Yeah.
things? So, but listen, I love Daredevil and the characters and the cast, so I really do hope that, like, aim for 8 episodes and do 2-3 seasons. I don't need 18. Trying to come up with 18 scripts and like make that all work is really, really hard, you know?
Yeah, that always did seem like it was a little bit excessive to me.
Yes.
When I heard the episode count back when they announced it, I was just like, I mean, it's cool because I want a lot of Daredevil, and I'm not going to complain about having more of it, but like, that's a lot, especially compared to all of the other Disney Plus, shows that are going like 6 to 8 episodes, depending on which one it is. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see how things pan out with that. And with that, we are now at the end of our episode. Steve, you got anything that you want to talk about? Anything coming up? Anything you want to plug that people might not know about?
We're going to announce our next IMAX screening on the site on Tuesday. And I'm working on a few other screenings, one of which could be really awesome, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I have a meeting today to discuss. So I'm fingers crossed, because if it does, it's the kind of thing that I think a lot of people would want to attend. And it would not be in LA.
I gotta say, like, one of my biggest regrets living away from either LA or New York is that I never get to go to any of these awesome screenings that you're constantly doing, because I see them. You'll post about them in our Slack and stuff like that, or you'll post about them on social, and I'll see them and I'll just be like, I want to go, but it's like a 10-hour drive for me to go do that.
I will tell you, we're doing a screening of the For All Mankind season 4 finale on Thursday night next week. By the way, For All Mankind, if you've never seen it, Apple TV is phenomenal. One of the best shows on TV. But we're doing a big event for the finale, and I'll have the creators, producers, and 3 of the cast. It's a huge Q&A. And there are people flying in and driving in and for the event, because one of the things that I love is the fact that, like, no one else is doing these events like we're doing. And if you're a fan of this show, like a super fan like I am, and you live in Denver, you are never going to see the cast. You're never going to meet Ron Moore or like the show. You know what I mean? And if you fly in for the event, you are definitely seeing them in person. You're going to watch the finale on a movie screen, which is the only time and place you'll see the finale on a movie screen. And I've seen the finale, and it's like one of the best episodes of TV this year. It's an hour and 17 minutes. It's a long episode filled with cool stuff. So it's really cool. And we had people once for our Vikings Valhalla event. We have a cat now. Notice. Yes, you want to say hi to the audience? Hold on.
I was wondering if we were going to get a kitty cameo. Aw.
But we had people flying from like Israel and other places for some of our events, because we sometimes have the cast hanging out. Anyway,
yeah.
It's really, we're very fortunate to be able to do these things, and it's only because of everyone who reads the site and watches this and everything else that we get to do this.
So if you want an opportunity to check out a Collider screening, be sure to, I would say the best course of action for you is to pay attention to Steve's social media, because he's always posting about them. Obviously, also check out collider.com. There's going to be information about all of it there. And anything else that we have upcoming, anything at all, whether it be coverage, anything like that, is all going to be on the website. So go over there, check it out, read everything. It's a great time. I get overwhelmed by just how much coverage there is on our site sometimes.
I'm also going to say that when we announce a screening or an event, we feature it in the top 6 for 24 to 48 hours. So if you read the site every day, you will see the announcement when we do a cool event. Like, it's for sure going to be featured, so you can't miss it.
Solid. Good plan. Get over there, check it out. With that, that is the end of our show. We will be back Monday with our usual stuff. I don't know who's going to be up because obviously we don't have the schedule quite figured out yet, but be sure to tune in for that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Make good choices, and I'll see you next week.